Nathan, what's up, man? We're doing Brian De Palma, Scarface. You know what that means? Say hello to my little friend.
Do you know what a hussar is, Neves? It's a pig who don't fly straight. And neither do you.
Oh, shit!
Get back here. Welcome back to Real Talk Podcast, episode 111. I'm your host, Nathan, and I'm joined by the man himself, Matthew Neves, to my left.
Thank you.
And today we are going to be talking about the one and only Brian De Palma.
Brian De Palma. I'm so excited that we're going to talk about his filmography.
I love Brian De Palma.
It's someone that we've mentioned a few times on the podcast, but we never really dived into his films, aside from talking about how fucking awesome Scarface is.
Yeah.
Which is a given.
Yeah, for sure. But his filmography goes deeper than Scarface for sure. He's got a lot of great films, especially in the 80s. And I mean, kind of one of these directors that got lost in time.
He was there with Spielberg, Lucas, Coppola, Scorsese. He was part of that group.
That's right, he was.
And he was one of the first to like get introduced by a lot of people. Like he was the one that met Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
He was in one of his earliest films back in the 60s,
right.
which was
one of Brian's shorts.
Yeah.
Where it's like a weird, like kind of like that kind of French cinema style. Like weird,
very much so. I think it was called like The Wedding Plan or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we didn't watch those films. I think we watched a good chunk of his like iconic ones though.
Yeah, I've seen the ones I really need to see.
Yeah.
The rest is like, you know, Brian De Palma could go a little bit too far sometimes and and has some premises that I don't really love.
No.
He definitely has some duds, but man, this guy knows how to make a film, like fundamentally.
Yes.
The way he shoots films, like is always insane to me. The way he uses music in his films are always insane to me. And those are the things I think about when I think about Brian De Palma. How would you describe Brian De Palma's style?
I would say like a Hitchcock with a little bit of sriracha.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
like
I don't know how else to describe it other than that. Where it's just like, you know, you put in a little bit of spice to it, because Hitchcock, I think his interference with the reason why his films are very suspenseful and very intense, but they were made in the 50s and 60s, a time where censorship was very like, you can't show nudity, you can't really say fucking shit, cunt, you know, all that shit. So you had to like limit yourself within that. Brian De Palma came from the 70s, dude.
Yeah.
So he was like, I could do this, man.
He's like, I could do the Hitchcock stuff, but I could show these killings crazy. I could show the violence, the nudity, and the...
Yeah. It was like intense, and that's what I really liked about it. And he also commented on the Hitchcock's films by making his own similar. So like movies like Dress to Kill, Body Double, Sisters. I saw Sisters. That was one of his earliest Hitchcock inspirations. And you get to see a lot of like the techniques that he was trying to figure out. And then by like freaking the 90s and 80s, he's just like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I know how to perfect all this shit, man.
In the 80s,
I think the 80s is his best decade.
He snapped in the 80s, man. He really snapped. In the 70s, all I've seen really from him is Carrie,
which is good.
Yeah,
Carrie's a good movie. I don't think it's my favorite of his. It's probably the one that like people were like, oh, this Brian De Palma guy. Like studios were like, all right, let's give this guy some money because this guy.
It's shocking. It's certainly a shocking film, and to me, it has frames and sequences that stick in my head really well. While the whole film really doesn't stick with me or move me. But there's like obviously the scene, the epic climax.
The climax is the best part.
She's covered in the blood.
Yeah,
and it's fucking exciting and visually scary and like memorable.
Yeah.
I think like that is the moment where people started to turn their heads and start to say, "Damn, Brian De Palma, this guy's serious."
Because once he hit that, his first film to hit the 80s was Dress to Kill, which is like a very Hitchcock inspired. Like I think it's like basically. Think Psycho, but in the 80s, which I fuck with. You know, Michael Caine's in it. Like, it's a nice twist at the end. But right after that film, because that film got successful, he does Blowout with Travolta because he worked with him on Carrie.
He does Blowout with Travolta, which I saw for the first time.
Yes.
And man, I've been thinking about this film so much. Blowout is so good. Like,
Yeah.
it's way better than I thought it was going to be. Famously, I wanted to watch this movie because of Quentin Tarantino, actually.
Yeah.
He's got this famous video of him walking around Video Archives, the store he used to work at.
Yeah.
I think it's like right after Reservoir Dogs came out. And they ask him his 3 desert island movies.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the first one he says, but then he says Blowout. And
Yeah.
he says because he thinks it's Brian De Palma's best film.
Yeah.
And then he says Taxi Driver as well.
Yeah.
So he was praising Blowout in that film. He was saying it's a near perfect film, and it's Brian De Palma's best, and John Travolta gives a crazy performance. And this is, I mean, obviously the reason why he later cast Travolta in Pulp Fiction. I think if Blowout wasn't made, Travolta does not get Pulp Fiction 100%.
Yeah, guaranteed. And that was kind of like his revived performance. He came back from that.
Yeah.
From a lot of duds that he was making during that time. But it's funny that you mentioned Tarantino because I saw the De Palma documentary that he did, and there was a very profound thing that De Palma says at the very end where it's like a director's highlights in age, the best films you're going to make are in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. And he's like, I'm telling you that now because nobody remembers Hitchcock's films after he passed 60.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to say The Birds is better than Rear Window. And I'm thinking like, who else said that? Who else said that once you reach a certain age and a certain amount of films that you're kind of done as a filmmaker?
That's how Quentin
Tarantino.
feels. Yeah.
Because he loves De Palma.
De Palma is literally this guy's number one influence. Like,
Yeah.
There's even another video where he talks about like a De Palma release was like he would go
Fanboy.
He was fanboying. He was seeing the earliest showing, then he would go see the
Yeah.
midnight showing, then he would go see it again, and
Right.
and he just really, really anticipated De Palma's releases, and I think has a lot of similar philosophies with him, and it's a lot of inspiration with some of the violence and gore and shocking stuff that Tarantino did. I think he got that watching De Palma films in the 80s.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing too, is like the 80s showcased De Palma where he got a good amount of money to do what the fuck he wanted.
I know.
And for the most part, it wasn't censored. The studios didn't really, they tried to, but he was like, nah, man, I'm doing my own thing. So you get like The Untouchables, which I feel like
It's crazy.
that's such a great fucking movie to do.
Yeah.
Like he worked with De Niro again. He got to work with a lot of great actors and performers.
Yeah, to cap off the 80s with Untouchables is like, or when does Untouchables come out? Sorry.
87. His last film was Casualties of War, which was like
Casualties
the
of War.
film that he wanted to do. Because
Right.
he's also very political in his like opinion on the Vietnam War and
Yes,
stuff like
for
that.
sure.
Like, yeah, America was fucking terrible. They poisoned so many people during that era. And Casualties of War for him was like his baby. So.
Quentin Tarantino has been quoted saying that Casualties of War is the best Vietnam film ever made.
Wow.
Yeah,
that is
he said that.
damn.
I'm like, oh, Apocalypse Now exists, but
Apocalypse
okay.
Now, Platoon.
Yeah.
But you know what? I mean, that's his opinion, man. If he's a De Palma head, like
is.
that is the Vietnam De Palma film you're gonna fucking watch. So I don't blame him.
I want to go back to Blowout. I want to start in the
Yes.
beginning of the 80s.
Of course.
Because, wow, this movie blew me away. It's one of the best movies about making movies I've ever seen.
Yes.
And has like when Brian sorry, Travolta
Yeah.
is recording that boom audio for the
Yeah.
film. So the premise is that he's like a audio editor,
Yeah. Sound guy.
sound guy
Yeah.
for like really shitty low budget films.
Yeah.
And he's out recording some stuff in the park and witnesses this murder essentially, and gets the audio of it because he's only recording on like a boom mic.
Yeah.
And then pieces together the audio with the pictures, the way those sequences happen.
Yeah.
But when this particular scene, when he's reliving the accident, and he sits down and he puts his headphones on,
Yeah.
and he's holding this pencil like he was holding the boom mic, and he's moving it around, and the way Brian De Palma uses the audio, I was like, my mouth was on the floor, bro.
Yeah, man.
I was like so floored by that. I had never seen something so the way it was working and the way he was cutting between the pencil, the real audio, and using it was so perfect to me.
Yeah.
And it's one of those scenes that like, wow, that's mastery of film. Like that's beautiful storytelling.
It's so good because it brings it back to the very end of the movie and how the audio is the significant part at the very end with her screaming and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I will always think of that shot where he's like holding her and the fireworks are in the background, and the music's playing, and he's like crying, and he's like, yeah, man, this ain't a happy ending. This is like, it's a tragedy. It's a beautiful tragedy.
To me, it's a near perfect film.
Yeah.
Like the way that film is constructed, the beats it hits, the way it uses that audio, it's amazing. My only critique of this film, I gave this film 4.5 stars.
Ooh.
And I would have gave it 5 stars. Is what is the girl's name who's cast?
Karen Allen?
Brian De Palma's wife at the time.
Yeah.
She's not a good actress in this film. And I wrote down here in my notes, if Jodie Foster's in this film, it's 5 stars.
Yeah.
Like if they cast another like female from that era who's like a really strong like female lead.
Yeah.
In that movie, I think it would have been a 5-star film. I think that De Palma casting his wife was not the best choice, and I know it's something he's done before.
He did that for Dress to Kill with Karen Allen as well.
Yeah.
And I think fucking Raising Cain, that was his second wife. She was in that one too. So yeah, directors do that sometimes. And
to me,
unfortunately,
at times her performance was kind of annoying.
Yeah.
And just wasn't contrasting Travolta's amazing performance.
He's so good at it.
He's so
that's the
good thing. He's so good in it that she kind of sticks out
compared
to me.
to like the roles he did for Grease and like Saturday Night Fever. This blows it out. Literally blow out. It blows it out of the fucking
and
water.
Even the supporting characters, the pimp guy that she like.
Yeah.
Bro, he's so good.
John Lithgow.
Yeah.
Lithgow's great. People forget Lithgow's been in a good amount of De Palma films.
That's right.
He's great as a fucking villain, dude. Oh man, it works so well.
He's menacing in that film.
Yeah.
Super, super cold, menacing performance. Mm-hmm. And then the ending. The ending, you're just like,
yeah.
I literally was sitting there watching. I was just like this.
Yeah.
Until the end of the credits, I didn't move. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe. How did I not think that was going to happen at the end? It's like almost so obvious when it happens.
Yeah.
But so beautifully like caps off this tragedy.
Yeah.
That's a good scream.
It's such a good scream.
And the way Travolta delivers that line,
like
so broken.
Yeah.
It's a good
The
scream.
music too. The music, man. You can't. I just
It's a near perfect film. Like to me, that's one. If you're getting into film or you're studying film, this is a film you study. The camera work. That's the first time De Palma's ever used Steadicam. And he literally masters it the first time he's ever used it.
It's great. I think it's the Garrett Brown was the Steadicam operator. So like the only films he did aside from that, the first film was Rocky.
Right.
The infamous Rocky steps.
And
then
it was
Kubrick,
invented for that.
Yeah. And then Kubrick was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Can you do that for The Shining? So he did that for The Shining with Jet. And then that's when De Palma was like, all right, let's see how good this is. And it's fucking
It's like
amazing.
some of the best examples of Steadicam work.
Yeah.
And the way the camera is used in that film, Blowout is... What a way to start off the 80s. And this is De Palma getting to the height of his powers and really showing off his filmmaking abilities from here on. Because 2 years after Blowout, we get Scarface.
Yeah.
And this is one of the most important films of my whole life. It's a top 5 film for me all time.
Yeah.
And I love Scarface. I feel like the meme kind of takes away.
Yes.
This is a big thing I want to talk about with Scarface.
No, of course.
The meme of like it becoming
Tony
so
Montana.
pop culture. Say hello to my little friend.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, it became like rap hip hop culture. It became, it just became like such a meme.
Yeah.
That I think it takes away from how good this film really is. Mm-hmm. Like, and how good Pacino really is in this film specifically.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I feel like it's both a blessing and a curse, in my opinion, with De Palma, where Scarface is like, it's arguably his most iconic film.
Yeah.
You know, I can't think of much, like, people are like, oh, what about Carrie, Blowout? It's like, dude, Scarface?
No.
Everyone fucking knows Scarface. 5-year-olds say hello to my little friend. Like, a 5-year-old doesn't watch the movie, but they fucking know Scarface. So
how many times has that been quoted in film, in music, TV shows? Like, it's one of the most referenced films of all time.
I think it suffers similar to Taxi Driver, where the culture of people are like misinterpreting why these characters are the way they are.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be looking up to Tony Montana.
No.
Let's be real, guys. Like I think we've established specific films like Fight Club and Drive and stuff where it's just like there is this demographic of people who are like, yeah, I'm fucking cool, man. I'm like Tony Montana. I'm gonna smoke the cigar. Right. I got my hot tub, man. Right. And it's just like, do you know how he dies in the end?
Right. The film, yeah.
He dies. He's like high on coke.
This film, like most gangster films ends in tragic consequences.
Yeah.
Like the gangster films are a good gangster film ends in a tragedy. That's
Exactly
how it works, and this is no different.
Yeah.
But I think the reason that it's so memeable and like in that culture is because of Al and the way Al gives personality and likability to a piece of shit like Tony Montana. It is the reason why it's so memorable, and because of the way the story's told as a come-up story.
Yes.
Tony Montana comes from absolutely nothing, right? And people say Al's performance might be a little over the top at times or whatever, but I argue that it's not, because I argue that imagine this guy who comes from the slums of Cuba, comes to America, and really does figure out a way to live the American dream, even if it's not a legal way. Even if he's killing people because of it and doing these horrendous things, he finds a way to live that American dream and literally has money and access to things that he's never even seen in his childhood. And De Palma does a great way of staging that progression of Tony. There's one scene I think about. This is a real subtle thing in that film. When he goes to Colombia, when Tony he makes it clear, he's like, no, I'm going, and you know, Omar's like, oh, I'll go for you, and he's like, no, I'm going, right? And when he meets with Sosa, in Colombia, and there's this scene where they're sitting there waiting for him, and they bring the water, the bowl with the lemon, and Tony looks at it and eats the lemon from the bowl where you're just supposed to wash your hands with. And to me, that's like a subtle detail that makes this film so good. It's like, that's exactly what that character would do. He's never seen that in his life. He comes from nothing. So it's like subtle things like that and subtle ad libs and things that Al does that makes that character so iconic and likable.
With Pacino's performance in Scarface, and I fully agree with that. All those scenes that he did, like little details like that, but also people saying like, oh, it's a little over the top. I always think about like, what was he like in Godfather? And then like after Godfather 2, like a mere 9 years later, he gets a performance like this, fucking day and night. Literally. Fucking, you get The Godfather with its dark shadows, it's very dim, and you see a character that's more tragic and more quiet, but
they're different films.
So different.
This is a flashy gangster.
Miami.
The Godfather is not a flashy gangster film.
No, and I think that's what I liked with what De Palma said. He's like, I looked at Oliver Stone's script, which by the way, Oliver Stone wrote the script, De Palma directed it, Pacino starred in it, dude. That's like the fucking trio, man. Like, you can't get better than that. That's like with Scorsese and Paul Schrader and Robert De Niro on Taxi Driver. It's like, how can you... It's so fucking good. And I love the fact that this isn't like other gangster films. This is like back when like Miami Vice was starting up. It's like this was like the colorful gangster era. And I love that.
And it's still in this era where you get this great supporting cast of like old school character actors. Good. The guy who plays Omar is so good. The guy who plays Frank Lopez. Even Stephen Bauer's Manny.
Man.
Like, that's an iconic role.
You got some Breaking Bad people.
And
in this film.
How excited do you get when you see Manny back in Breaking Bad? And also you get what's his name?
The late he recently passed away. The guy what's his name?
Oh, Mark Margolis.
Mark Margolis. Yeah. He was in it.
Salamanca.
Salamanca,
right. Salamanca.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, it takes a lot of these performances. And also, like, Michelle Pfeiffer's in it. She's like 25.
And she kills it.
Yeah. She's fucking amazing in it. It was one of her earliest roles. And, like, she handles it really well. Because, like, Pacino is a big star.
Yeah. Her character is so important in this film to give Al that likability. And some of the Al's best acting, I think, is when he's interacting with her. When he's buying the Porsche.
Oh my God.
That's like one of the best scenes ever. When he's buying that Porsche, you're like, do you like it?
Do you like this?
Or when he's waiting outside in the Cadillac, it's like, he looks back at it. He looks back at it. He's like, what? It's a Cadillac. Okay, let's move on for Scarface because I was going to talk about it all fucking day.
Let's go into, because I think we've talked a good amount about the 80s. I mean, like, I do want to talk briefly about Body Double. With De Palma.
Body Double. We both saw this one. So this one is so De Palma.
You asked me what other De Palma film you need to see because we're like, okay, we got Mission Impossible. That's De Palma. I've seen that. Untouchables, Blowout, Carrie, Scarface, Carlito's Way. What else? And I'm like, dude, Body Double.
Body Double.
And I want to know your thoughts.
This one's real De Palma. This one's a weird one. I'm not gonna lie. It's about a little peeping Tom.
Yep.
guy who's watching this girl through this window and then eventually gets invested in this girl's life and starts following her around, and these crazy events start happening. But it's a wild one. There's some wild twists, and I'll say it's like a wild ride, but the way it's shot is incredible with these really long shots. Like these, you feel like as an audience member, you're peeping in on some shit you shouldn't be watching at times.
Yeah.
And Brian De Palma does that really effectively. That's a real cool one.
For me, like Body Double was the one similar to Blowout, where instead of being a sound guy, it's a creepy fucking actor that has always been getting the side parts his whole career, and now he's got the main one.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like the movie's about, and how he struggles through, like, can I do this? Can I overcome my fears? Can I do all that shit? And it uses inspiration from Vertigo, Psycho, Rear Window, and makes a fucking Hitchcock-inspired De Palma film from the 80s. And
it works. That main character, this guy is a twisted, broken, struggling actor who like literally goes crazy falling into this girl's life essentially. And it's a really cool character study, and it's shot really well, keeps you engaged the whole time. It's wild at times. It's not one I would say play in your living room while you got family over.
No.
It's not that kind of movie. But it's a really crazy one. It's a real memorable one as well.
Fucking rocks. Fucking rocks. You know what? Let's go into a couple more De Palma films, and then we can do some questionnaires, because the sad reality with De Palma is, like, once you look at his 80s films and 90s films and a little bit of his 70s, the 2000s, he's kind of right when it comes to, like, his age, because it's just like, I saw Femme Fatale with Rebecca Romijn and Antonio Banderas, and it's like, it's De Palma, but it gets a little sloppy.
Right.
And then his other films, they look sloppier, and it's just like, you know, they're not as good as his 90s and 80s, but you know what? We're still going to remember the good ones.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe, like, he directed Mission Impossible. People forget that shit.
Yeah, that's his biggest film.
This guy did Mission Impossible. That's Brian De Palma who started that, a franchise that's
still going.
It's still going.
Still
like,
going.
You know what I mean? It's still going. That's pretty nuts. 1996, he does.
Pretty
Mission
impressive
Impossible.
stuff. Another one in the 90s, Carlito's Way. We can talk briefly about that.
Carlito's Way is so good. It's one of those Al performances where, you know, people say Al in the 80s and 90s started to get a little too over the top. And to me, Carlito's Way is one of these nuanced, great Al performances.
Yeah.
And it's a reason why I don't buy that shit. I think Al has great performances in every decade, and this is one of them.
Yeah, because Carlito's Way is not like Scarface.
No.
He's way more sympathetic, and it's way more tragic.
Yeah.
And the fact that Brian De Palma had the fucking balls to be like, you know what? Beginning of the movie is the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you guys that. And you're going to...
I know.
I'm like...
And he does it to perfection, because by the time you're back, by the time you go through that ride and you're back at the end, you almost forget.
Yeah.
It almost comes as a surprise, like a twist, even
Very
though you
much.
saw it already. And it is much more tragic because it's not like Tony Montana where he's embracing this gangster lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a man who has paid for the gangster lifestyle he used to live.
Yeah.
Comes out of prison and is trying to, like, get his life together. He's trying to build up some money so that he can go clean.
Yeah.
And just get away from all of the mistakes he made in his younger past. And it's tragic because it's like one of those stories of, like, you just, once you're in, you can't get out.
Yeah.
And these unfortunate circumstances lead him to being back into that life.
I love it. I love it so much because of the fact that it is different from his previous role working with De Palma. It is so much more different than Donnie Brasco. Because that's the thing, too. Al was still doing gangster films, but it wasn't the same fucking shit.
Yeah.
It was always something different. It was always a different performance. And with that one, it's like... You can't get
and the
any
supporting
better.
cast, like Sean Penn as Kleinfeld, like unbelievable. He's like a GTA Vice City character in that.
Great.
He's like so amazing. Young John Leguizamo as Benny Blanco from the Bronx.
Oh yes, man. Fuck yeah.
Luis Guzman, a great supporting character.
He's
there.
such a good character actor in those earlier films.
He's amazing. He's amazing. This is a real special film. Can you please do the impression of the guy?
Which one? Are you talking about Viggo Mortensen? All right, Viggo Mortensen's in Carlito's Way. So this is what he's like, you know, Carlito, man.
That's the best scene ever.
Fuck, man, I can't walk. I can't fuck. Go ahead and shoot me, cocksucker. And then Pacino's like, I ain't gonna kill you.
That is one of
Get the fuck out of here.
That scene makes me laugh so
It's so good,
much.
man.
And he's so sweaty and nervous.
You wired? You fucking cocksucker. You wired? I don't know how Viggo Mortensen did it, but that one scene, man. That one scene. He's a character actor, and
incredible.
he fucking nails it.
Yeah.
That's the thing too with Brian De Palma films. I love his films, but man, there are too many actors in his films that I can quote and do impressions. Like we could go Tony Montana all day, but I guarantee you, we're gonna say that in the skit already. So instead, let's do some questions for each other.
Yeah,
I got some questions for you, Nathan. You got some questions for me. Do you want to go first?
Let's get them done. Yeah.
Fucking A, man.
I'm gonna go first.
All right.
De Palma or Coppola?
You know, the sad reality is I love De Palma. I love his style, but when Coppola like hits,
He hits better than almost anybody.
it's
ever.
like a Muhammad Ali knockout.
Yeah,
man.
it really is. Yeah, I think De Palma has more films that I like,
Yes.
but Coppola has better films.
Yeah.
Like-
Coppola is less, but hits way
yeah,
harder.
exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah. For that reason, I think I have to pick Coppola as well.
Okay. I'll go next. Carlito's Way or Scarface?
For me, it's Scarface.
Yeah.
Holds, man, I saw Scarface maybe in grade 6 or 7. Like,
Oh man, you're young.
I must have seen it 20 times at least already. It's one of those films that's so important to me and important in me falling in love with film. So it's Scarface.
Yeah.
Top 5 all time.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You already asked the question of how you describe De Palma's style, but I like the other question you got there.
Oh, if you were to recast the role of Tony Montana, I can't picture anybody in this role. Who would you cast?
You know what? If they had to remake it, because I heard that they're remaking Scarface, which I fucking hate.
Please never do.
But
please.
if you are, get a competent director, and I love Pedro Pascal, man.
Oh my God.
I love Pedro Pascal.
Imagine Mandalorian snorting rails of coke.
I would fuck with that so hard. And no, I'm not just saying it because Narcos. All right, I'm saying it because I like him as an actor, and I want a different.
I could see it.
I want a different environment with Scarface because
Yeah.
the original 30 Scarface was like,
Paul Muni's Scarface
Yeah.
was not a
No.
Cuban story at all.
yeah, the Cuban story works for that. You got to do something different with the next one, but I just don't make it. That's the real answer.
Yeah.
My other question for you: most underrated De Palma film. What is a De Palma film that you rarely hear about that should be heard more? of?
So originally, I think it's Carlito's Way. I have a lot of praise for Carlito's Way. But when I saw Blowout,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is the one.
Yeah.
This is like technically maybe his best film. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's damn near perfect.
Yeah.
And people don't talk about that film enough. No. Like even when you talk about Travolta, you gotta talk about
Yeah.
Blowout, and people really don't.
So, if not his best performance, it's one of his best.
Yeah, I think it's easily his underrated gem masterpiece.
And if you're a De Palma hardcore fan, or if you've seen a good amount of films from him, and you're like, hey, what's this guy like? What else has he done stuff? I highly recommend watching the De Palma documentary directed by Noah Baumbach.
Oh yes,
Fully
great.
recommend it. All it is just De Palma sitting down, talking about every single one of his films.
One by one.
From the 60s up until his last film he made recently, and covering every single one. I
Yeah,
love it.
and it's fascinating the time he was doing this stuff, the 80s. He came up in such an exciting time and got to work with some of the greatest actors of all time. So it's fascinating. If you're interested in De Palma, I definitely recommend watching that documentary.
Fucking A.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Real Talk Podcast. What we want to know is, what is your favorite Brian De Palma film?
Yeah,
Let us
man.
know in the comments. Is it Scarface? Is it Blowout? Is it Carlito's Way? Is it Untouchables? He's got lots.
Oh, yeah.
Let us know. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to your boys. We'll catch you in the next one, man.
Take care. Wash your hair.
Peace.